Hi, welcome to Bigger Possibilities, a podcast from Schultz Williams, where we explore what's possible for nonprofit organizations and the world through leadership, purpose, and progress. My name is Craig Shelley. I'm the CEO here at Schultz Williams. Today's a particularly special episode. We're going to be chatting with Gary Laermer, who's someone I have spent a lot of time with over the years and come to admire greatly. Gary hired me when I was a shaggy, long-haired 18-year-old, not knowing much about the world. Then he eventually hired me in my first full-time job. I've been sort of following his standard and chasing it as a leader ever since. If you've worked with me and you've liked something I've done, I probably learned it from Gary. And once we started this podcast where we were going to talk to leaders, there was no chance that Gary wasn't going to be one of the guests. We worked together at the Boy Scouts, at Montefiore Medical Center. He's been a client, a mentor, really just one of my closest friends. So this is a conversation for me with a person, I think more than anyone else, that has really shaped my career. So Gary, welcome.
Well, thank you, Craig. It's great to be with you, and I appreciate the chance always to speak with you. And if anyone has not liked something Craig has done, he did not learn that from me.
That is true. Although the good came from Gary, the bad I came up with all on my own. Well, excellent. I mean, let's sort of jump into it. I'm curious. We've talked a lot about leadership and careers over the years, but never kind of in this sort of format. So, when you think about your career, which despite your youthful appearance is quite lengthy, what are the moments that, stand out that really kind of shaped you?
I think among the top moment that really helps shape me and the work I've had at several different nonprofit organizations is I continue to be shocked how good the profession has been to me. I mean, what my life is today as opposed to what my parents' life was in one generation is, well, one, it's a miracle, and two, it is so dramatically different that perhaps when I started my first full-time job in 1980, I would have never envisioned that the profession could have been so good and kind to me. And so I remain surprised to this day that it's been this good and that it's really been a great experience.
Yeah, no, it's very true. Like I would say this, like my first job in this sector was stuffing envelopes for you in 1995, and I would never have predicted the life that would lead me to. And it's one of so much opportunity and an opportunity to give back, but also just an opportunity to do well for yourself. It's kind of amazing. And for those not familiar with Gary's background, right? So like he's helped, started with the Boy Scouts, held leadership roles all throughout there. That's where we first met. Went on, held leadership roles at multiple medical centers and their fundraising departments. Was the CEO of a YMCA, led fundraising for the YMCA in New York, led fundraising and alumni relations at Pace University. So really has kind of worked across every piece of the sector. When did you kind of figure out that this was a career and a thing you were going to do?
Well, I ended my full-time professional career at Pace University as a vice president there, but I started there as a student, graduating in 1980, and they had a particular program around management training for nonprofit work, and in particular youth-serving agencies. I was partly drawn to it because it was one of the few majors that did not have a foreign language requirement. I said, that's for me. I'll take that one. And as you get into it and you experience the work of what nonprofits do and the kind of opportunity there is, I mean, the opportunity in this sector is so extraordinary. I mean, philanthropy is at about $620 billion a year now, give or take, and continues to grow. There are some other metrics that may not be as positive, but the bottom line, it is a growth industry. And it's very exciting to be part of a sector that has the opportunity to thrive as much as nonprofits. Not that every individual agency is thriving. Some might be in survival mode as opposed to thrive mode, but the opportunities are extraordinary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just felt like you were part of a cluster. There was a cluster of you that I remember meeting and working for that sort of came through that program. And like, it was the one group of people I'd ever met that like made a conscious decision in college till much more recently. Now it's happening again, but like that was a fascinating program. I think it was like American
Humanities, yeah.
Yeah. And it like really sort of put a lot of leaders into the sector, and then I think kind of faded out. But
It did fade out, but it was their very, very first attempt to bring professionalism to nonprofit leadership roles and fundraising roles to make sure these individuals graduated with a credential, in this case, a bachelor's degree. But it was really, back in the 70s, their first attempt, the work to professionalize the nonprofit sector.
yeah, no, it was really very much ahead of its time. But so anything about like, so lots of opportunities for you over the years, but like, what else has really surprised you about where your career's taken you, which now it's taken you to, consulting, you're senior consultant at DBD Group. What surprised you most in this journey?
I think two things that really, I would take away as big surprises, aside from, how my life has turned out about it. One, how much and how many times you really meet great people in the work, but also how many times you find that there are so many nonprofits that struggle really, really to be so externally focused that the world understands the work they do, as opposed to their inner circle who understands the work that they do. And I'm constantly amazed, particularly today, with the ability to get the word out, how sometimes, and now as a consultant at DBD Group and working with nonprofits, how they still struggle to really find their external presence and their external voice.
Yeah, no, and it's a fascinating challenge because it's like, you're right, like they live in this world where they talk to themselves, so they think everybody understands the thing that they're doing, and that is absolutely not the case. And right, like if you're not telling your story, what are you doing? And that was another thing I learned from you very early on. Like you were always very good at shaping the story of the work that we were doing and telling it and amplifying it. And yeah, like, so you see so many nonprofits and you're like, well, you're just not doing that. So like if we just started there, like you'd make a huge leap forward.
Yeah.
I've always appreciated, obviously you invested a ton in me over the years, but I've watched you invest in so many. You always seem to care as much about developing the teams around you and the people around you as you did about raising the money or accomplishing the goal. Where did that philosophy come from? Like, how did that start?
I think it just starts from I really enjoy people and being with people. And really, I really enjoy the fascination and the work of, building a team committed to, very common expectations. I think a key point of leadership is really get good at communicating expectations in a way that your team, your direct reports, others understand what is expected. So there's no confusion around what is the difference between activity and productivity, which is often, particularly in a nonprofit, you get so wound up in the day-to-day activity, you lose a little sight of productivity. So be really, really clear with your team around it. And I always am fascinated how many different ways you need to communicate expectations so that every different person hears it, right? Not everybody hears it or processes it the same way. And the other fascination I've always found in teams and helping others is, right, you're always trying to balance your team with people who bring experience to the table and have an understanding of best practice, and people who don't need any experience and bring enthusiasm and grit to the table. And damn the torpedoes, we're full steam ahead, as opposed to someone who is like, I've been through this before, here are the 5 things you need to do, right? And there's this constant friction between the best practice people and the people who are out to be next practice. I don't know a word better than best, but yeah. Next, whatever it is next is best, right? When the world moves so fast, best practice today is out of date tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is the value of best practice if it's not sustainable or it's constantly changing? And I've really found in nonprofit work, particular, the study of those group dynamics of experience versus enthusiasm is fascinating to watch, and really focusing on all the different ways to communicate expectations drew me to the work, drew me to understanding the team that we had, drew me to the people on the team, looking at them each as an individual. But those dynamics I find fascinating.
Well, it's so interesting too, because like I would have, and I guess I've never asked you this question before because I never heard you describe it in quite that way, but like I would have thought of that team that we all worked together initially as like the core qualities were like, there was a lot of camaraderie. Like some of my best friends are still from that group and that team, yourself included, right? Like we were a tight knit group. We were very much damn the torpedoes, but there was a constant friction. And I would have said at that point, or in a less mature point of my life, I would have felt like we were like, you were, sort of fermenting us to compete, like to say like, all right, if I could get them to kind of compete with each other, we're going to get the best thing. And there's a little truth in that. But like this idea of like, no, it was a natural tension of like, we have this group of people that was probably, I was in the group of like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I have a lot of enthusiasm. And then there's a group of people that have done this for a while. And like that natural tension was actually the thing that got us the most success. Whereas I think now there's like this tendency of people try to manage the tension down in teams. And it's like, no, maybe a little bit of that is actually what you need to move forward. So it's an interesting idea.
I think a little tension is good, right? It keeps everybody on their toes. And looking back there, you know, certainly more than one or two times, I probably made an error in judgment in bringing somebody to the team that, well, particularly in our shared experiences as the Boy Scouts, who were very best practice, formal, process driven. And you drop them into this hurricane of damn torpedoes. Let's just keep, you know, maybe it wasn't the best opportunity in their career to do that.
Right.
But, you know, my personal choice, and again, plus or minus, my personal choice has always been to lean on those who bring enthusiasm, who focus on the fun of the job, understand the difference between activity and productivity, and just keep getting it done, even if you don't really know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have a good base of common sense or good judgment, so you just keep moving forward. Now, of course, if I were picking a surgeon for me, I might lean to the experience.
That's a fair point.
You know, so it may be different in every place. But so for a surgeon, I might lean on experience. But for fundraising and work and in solving societal problems and, you know, keeping organizations feeling that they can thrive, even in the most difficult circumstances, has always been what I've been naturally drawn to and have tended to build teams a little more weighted to that, which creates that tension.
Yeah, no, and I think I've not surprisingly followed that lead. But you're right, surgeons, maybe I'm looking for something a little bit different.
Maybe.
So, I mean, how do you identify those people, right? So like, so to your point, like you're not looking for a resume, you're looking for something else. Like how do you find it? How do you see that in a person and sort of groom it?
I think you have to see the seeds of it. And I, you know, not that I never try to put people in boxes, but when you meet them, I kind of look at it in terms of, you know, what's their comfort zone, this coming to work with enthusiasm and, you know, ready to change the world versus I've had some experience. Here's my process. Here's what I perceive to be the best practice. And it's usually through just conversation. And I think people will, you know, kind of out themselves pretty quickly.
Yeah. No, you know, I think that's, yeah, like you can kind of, you know it when you see it sort of thing.
You know it when you see it and you hear it in their answers, particularly if you talk about, you know, how did you solve a particular problem? You know, and if the person answers, well, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I figured it out as I went along. Okay. That'll tell you a little bit about them. You know, as opposed to someone who may say, well, you know, I went to people who had experience with this particular problem. I helped, you know, put together a solution from their experience. Okay, that tells me something else.
Yeah. So I would love to get your perspective a little bit on like, right, people talk about, and I think value, as do I, and recognize that it's better, like teams with diverse perspectives, diverse backgrounds, different types of people, like that actually makes a team function better. I always find you were very good at like accepting people for who they were, right? Like not looking to everyone needed to fit into a certain box, but then fitting all these different personalities together. How conscious was that? Like how much do you look at like, I need different types of people, of different personalities, different backgrounds? Like how cognizant of you were you that you were doing that?
I try to be pretty cognizant because, again, what makes it fun for me and what builds my fun factor in work it is being around a lot of different people and, and certainly creating an environment where they feel they can voice their opinion. The tough part in having a lot of diverse opinions at the table as the leader, everybody around the table at the end of the day needs to understand they have an opinion and they have a vote, but I've got 51% of the vote as the leader.
Yeah. No, just with a leadership team recently, we had that whole conversation and they're like, oh, there's this tension with it. I'm like, at some point you just need to be clear. Like, I do want to hear your input, but this isn't a democracy, right? Like I do have 51%.
But and sometimes it's hard for people to accept that. Because they struggle with, they bring two things to the table that they struggle with. One, it's an ego issue, and they have to address the ego issue. And two, they just feel it's more important to be right than find a solution.
Yeah.
And I have often compromised the feeling of being right to I got to solve this.
Well, it goes back to that productivity, activity kind of dynamics, right? Like, do you want to be right or do you want to be productive, right? Like, it's like, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to be busy or are we trying to actually solve this thing and move forward?
And as you know, the keeping the ego in check in a group, it takes work. It does, it'll very often bubble to the top.
Well, and I think too, when you hire a type of person that you've described, like a lot of times those people come with ego, right? Like when you have that sort of, I'm looking for the next practice, not the best practice, like those people tend to think pretty highly of themselves and want their practice to be the next one.
Yes. And be named for them also usually.
Yes, exactly. Right. Exactly. Right. I'd like to call this. Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
So when you look back, right, like not the campaign or the gift that you raised or the time we did this, but like as a leader, what, like when you think about developing people, what are you most proud of?
What I'm most proud of is how they each personally feel wildly successful in their careers. And many have gone on to do other things and pursue other careers and advance the work. And, I get enormous, over the years, personal satisfaction, learning about every bit of your success along the way. And so, what I take away is that the teams that I've really had the pleasure to work with or lead, the individual success has been terrific. I mean, it has really been terrific. And, as we said at the top of this, for some people, kind of life-changing.
Yeah. No, I think for many of, most of us. All right. You've been kind of doing this long enough. You've seen several generations of nonprofit leaders kind of come through. What do you think leaders today are doing especially well?
Well, I think leaders today have developed a much better and deeper skill in crisis management because
we've had a lot of crises to manage.
Yeah, we've had a lot of crises to manage, and it's a muscle you have to exercise, right? Because when you're in the middle of something critical, whether it's losing funding, losing a key staff person, you become a great, you develop that muscle and become a great crisis manager while still running the organization, right? You can't be so diverted by a crisis that you lose track of what your mission and purpose is, and don't get so derailed that you're spending, again, all of your time dealing with one thing. I have this conversation a lot with CEOs, particularly around the crisis of their turnover in their development staff. They view this as the crisis.
Yep.
I look at it a different way, and I guide them, and I'll often say, losing staff is not your crisis. It's just become a natural behavior. Accept it and plan for it. Your crisis is that over the years, you haven't built a network of 5 or 6 people that you could call on for referrals when you need to make a hire, so that when you have a vacancy, you're not spending 8 months to fill it. You're spending 8 weeks because your network have sent you names and resumes of great people.
Yeah.
right?
Or too, I mean, I think even on that specific challenge too, sometimes it's like, all right, what's actually happening here? To your point, accept it, understand it's going to happen. It's not a crisis, but also like there are some people it happens to more than others. And it's like at some point that's look in the mirror, right? Like that you're doing something that's causing it, right? Like there's a lot of turnover in fundraising staff. I don't have a lot of turnover, and I haven't generally in my career, right? Like you haven't had a lot of turnover. It's like there is some on the edges, but like if you do it well, you can keep a core group of people for as long as you need them. But
but it's having that network when I have a vacancy.
Yeah.
Hey, can you send me 5 names? You send me 2 names. It's works. Over my personal experience over the years, where I've had this network of people to call. Where certainly one of our major donors at an organization sent 3 of his kids to come work for me.
I remember
over periods of time.
I worked with 2 of them. I remember that well.
You have that network of, hey, who do you think would be great on the team? Or in another institution when I had an opening, my God, it ended up being the president's daughter we ended up hiring because I called 4 or 5 people and said, I need names.
Well, to your point too, like you always have to be on the lookout. Like I was at a point in my career where I feel like if you need senior people, I know someone. But then I've had a challenge of like, how do I hire entry level people? And I like to hire in the model that you described, right? Like I'm not hiring the typical person. I'm trying to find something else that's out there. And we just recently hired someone that I met like off of my daughter's like college fencing team, right? Like it's like, so now I'm like apparently recruiting at, college athletic events, but whatever, it's like, you've got to find talent. And if you don't see that as part of your job, you're going to always be in a crisis of not having the people you need.
Correct. It will be a crisis when someone leaves unless you've built your personal referral network. And the beauty of the personal referral network, even if you change jobs, it'll follow you.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Where do you think leaders need the most support these days? Like if you're leading in a nonprofit and a fundraising team, where do you think they need more support?
Probably number one would be in articulating their story or their case. If you're a CEO today and you can't, in 2 or 3 sentences, 2 sentences describe the societal problem your organization is working to solve, and 2 sentences on your work in solving it, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, everybody loves an elevator speech. Everybody wants to get off on the 2nd floor.
Yeah.
So you got 2 sentences. What is the societal problem you're trying to solve? How are you solving it? And I think there's a lot of struggle in that space among leadership in being able to articulate your case in that manner. I think probably the other greatest challenge in leadership is I have always believed as the CEO of a nonprofit, core to your work is building a board of directors for the organization you want to become, not for the organization you are today. And I think a lot of leadership struggles with that.
Yeah, you're right. And I definitely learned that from you. I watched you do that. And it was always like, we would think we had the best people, then you would show up with like 3 people that were the whole next level to that. And like, your organization is never going to rise. Your organization will never rise above the level of your board, right? So it's like, and maybe in a more crass way, someone once told me when I was CEO of a nonprofit, they like always make sure the people on your compensation committee make a lot more money than you do. So but it's like you've got to raise the level of the board for lots of reasons.
Oh yeah, and I think they struggle with the vision of that, and because I think they'll struggle. They're so wrapped up in the day to day. That they struggle with what do we want to be in? Where do we want to be? What do we want to be in 5 or 10 years from now? And how do I build the board that gets me there, as opposed to making sure that I make payroll this month?
Yeah, and you've got to do both, but you'll always be chasing payroll if you don't worry about the first. Like if you don't build that board in the right way, you'll never get out of the other problem. So also, so now I'm curious on your perspective of consulting. You've been at it for a year and a half. You've worked with some amazing consultants like myself and my teams over the years. But like, how do you see the role of consultants changing in the sector?
Oh my! Well, I guess in 3 areas. One, there is certainly a movement afoot in the nonprofits to make better use of fractional expertise, to bring in a set of assets to an organization that they may not have existing at the moment and aren't prepared to make complete full-time commitment to it. And it doesn't have to be just fundraising. It could be accounting. It could be HR. It could be, but you want a period of time to have some outside view at the table is one. And I think to a lot of it, well, a lot of my meetings with CEOs, I kind of look at them as therapy for the CEO.
Yeah.
That they have someone on the outside, not a member of their board or a subordinate, that they can speak very openly with, who has perspective of what's going on in their organization, right? As the consultant, I attend their meetings, I sit with them, I have a perspective. So when they talk about individuals or situations, it's a safe space. And so I call it therapy for the CEO.
Yeah.
And I guess it's important for them to have that. And really, third, I find it to be a courage booster for them. The information we provide them, the insights we provide them, the demonstration of helping them make data-informed decision builds their courage. So, you know, in a lot of the work, I just kind of look at myself as like Captain America's shield. A little cover, a little protection, a little courage, and it all goes a long way.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think the thing where I've seen it the most now, I've been doing this for a little bit, is like most people only see the thing that they see, right? Like they see their organization and they see the stuff that they're doing every day. And the fact that we see so many things, it allows us to kind of just bring a different perspective. And it's like, you just have like pattern recognition that you can lend to people. And to your point, that gives them courage, that gives them the knowledge they need to sort of move forward. And then the fractional piece is just huge. It's coming up all the time recently. And it's like, yeah, that's very new to the sector. People used to think if I had a thing, I needed to hire a person to do it. Yeah. And now there's this realization, like, actually, if I had 20% of the right person, that probably gets me much further than going out and finding the wrong person on my own. Yeah.
Correct. And I think a lot of it has to do with control. The CEO can control a subordinate and employee, a full-time employee, when they're writing, you know, signing to approve their check. It's a little tougher in a third-party consultant.
Yeah. Well, I think you also, right, you have to get more comfortable with having expertise around you that maybe knows things that you don't know, right? Like to your point, like if I want to, the executive directors, the CEOs that feel they need to control everybody, it's often because they don't want someone at the table that they think knows as much or more than them. So, yeah. You know, one of the themes of this podcast is always like, you know, the best opportunities are ahead of us, the possibilities are ahead of us. What gives you the greatest sense of hope when you think of the nonprofit sector and the future of philanthropy?
Oh, well, I think the sense of hope comes from the fact that there's a reason the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror, right? You're looking forward and you're looking at a much bigger picture ahead of you as opposed to the very small picture, you know, behind you. And in seeing that kind of big picture, I think there's enormous opportunity, you know, very, very significant opportunity around philanthropy as gifting continues to move, you know, more dramatically from gifts of cash or a check to asset gifts. The potential is very, very significant in a way that organizations raise money. I think the potential of bringing, you know, development professionals to the table and building the philanthropy profession is very, very significant. You know, I think a lot will change. You know, I'm working with a couple of organizations that are you know, looking at structural issues, like, you know, they have gift officers, major gift officers, principal gift officers. I'm like, please, none of that really matters to me. I think you're much better off, you know, having a donor relations officer or maybe a senior donor relations officer, and make it about the donor, not about some arbitrary number that you have assigned as a major gift versus a principal gift. Or, you know, that's all just nonsense, and that's in your head. It's really about where the donor is, not about, you know, what you have made. And so I think there'll be some pretty big shifts in the way development shops are organized, and probably an increase in the skill set development professionals will need.
So, you know, now as you get near the closer to the end of your career than the beginning, closer. I guess we all are, but you're closer than me. You're maybe starting to occasionally glance in that rearview mirror and not just look through the windshield. What do you want your legacy to be? You've done so many interesting things, worked on so many important missions. What do you want Gary Laermer's legacy to be?
I think at the end of the day, the people I've worked with, the organizations I've worked at, the donors I've worked with, the boards, all of it, I'd be thrilled if they all just said, Gary's done good things. That something is better because, Gary was here, or, you've made a difference. I don't feel I need, namings and opportunities and all of that. It doesn't, drive me. But, I do hope at the end of the day that the places I've worked, the people I have worked with, volunteers I've got to know over the years, do believe that it was a positive experience for them and some good things came of it. And I'm really happy with that.
Yeah, no, and I think you absolutely, that will be true. You don't ever really talk about this, but it's funny. You are the only fundraiser I've ever met that a donor made a naming gift and put the name in your name instead of their name. So that's, I think that speaks to a lot of the impact you've had on, or is one example of the impact you've had on donors and the people around you. Last kind of question: what's one piece of advice you got in your career that's stayed with you, that you still reflect on and think about?
Work every day to keep the big thing the big thing.
All right, I love it. Let's leave it there. Gary, really personally can't speak enough or express enough gratitude for everything you've done for me and my career. Your friendship, your mentorship, introducing me to this career in the first place has just, been so much for me personally, but also thank you for joining this podcast. We really, really appreciate it. Like every conversation I think I've ever had with you is a good one. Thanks to everyone for listening to Bigger Possibilities. If you've enjoyed this, please subscribe, please share with other folks in the sector. We appreciate you all. Thanks for what you're doing. And thank you, Gary.
Thank you very much.